Hi, Vanity Fair. I'm Billy West. You might recognize me as both Ren and Stimpy.
Hey, Ren, will you button me? Shut up, you fool! Else I shall kill you!
Or Fry. Oh, man, did everything just taste purple for a second? And Farnsworth on Futurama.
Good news, everyone! Well, I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
That's exactly the job I've always wanted.
Nobody is as funny or as smart as you.
I'm nice. I've got a great dog. I can eat a ton of cotton candy without getting sick.
You were expecting maybe the Easter Bunny?
Oh, joy! Hey, Ren, it's Commander Hawk and Stimpy. Happy, happy, happy. Joy, joy, joy. My favorite live-action drama.
It's so funny. When John Crispolucci called me to do Ren and Stimpy, he said, "Hey, I want you to do voices on the cartoon here." I said, "Sure, wonderful." And I looked at the drawings and I couldn't figure out what they were. You know, were they microbes or were they mosquitoes? But it was like very Dolly-esque. I used Larry Fine from the Three Stooges as a template for Stimpy.
Hey, Mo, I peed on my shoe.
So I amped them up into sort of the cartoon universe. You know, it's like,
hey, Ren, will you button me?
Come on, Ren. I need your help. Oh, please!
He sent in my Stimpy audition because he changed his mind. He wanted to do the Ren character. And I said, fine. I don't give a fat frog's behind who does what. I had a job. I was grateful. We started doing stuff and he got himself fired unceremoniously. So then the execs were going like, well, wait a minute. Wasn't Billy supposed to do both voices? And, you know, they sent me some stuff and I read it and I sent it in and they said, okay, we'll work with you, you know.
Dear Ren, it's me. You are my favorite TV star.
The voices to me sound like what they look like.
Happy, happy, joy, joy. Happy, happy, joy, joy.
Happy, happy, joy, joy, joy.
I was, wondering, well, if you want to, go to the fair, stupid.
Jim Jenkins, he was really creative and he created this slew of characters. And the character Doug, I guess, was based on him when he was a little kid. You know, he was sensitive, had crushes on girls, but he didn't even know how to approach them. And he was respectful of everybody. He was...
Well, a painfully average 11-and-a-half-year-old. And this is my dog, Pork Chop. Oh, no, here comes Roger KLOTZ. Hey, loser, I'm running for office, so vote for this.
I know how you must feel now, but in a few years, when you look back on all this...
What a loon! You never told me your sister was such a weirdo!
Well, actually, I did try to...
She's even goofier than you are, Funny!
So everything worked out okay.
These characters were just absolutely beautiful, and I got to do Doug Funnie and Roger KLOTZ. I got to do their gym coach, Coach Spitz.
He sounded like this.
You didn't break anything, did you? Nah, nothing broken.
I know there's a reason why certain people talk the way they do. They might have bruxism. They might have a periodontal malocclusion, or their jaw might be jutting out. Say your jaw was like really out and you have to talk through all that stuff to get to your tongue. You have to go through the jaw and you got to go through all that space.
And by the time it comes out, it's all spill.
And so that show lasted for 4 years on Nickelodeon, and my mom loved that show. You know, long after it was over with and they did another Doug on Disney, I had nothing to do with it. My mom would say, too bad you can't get that Doug thing going again.
Bugs Bunny.
You were expecting maybe the Easter Bunny?
You're a cartoon, you're not real.
Not really. If I weren't real, could I do this?
At the time that they were casting for Space Jam, I was still working in New York City on the Howard Stern show. And I was getting ready to leave radio because, you know, I did my bit for radio for what it's worth, but they don't pay anything, you know, and I just said, you know, I can't stay here. If I stay in the part of the pool where people pee, shame on me. But Ivan Reitman, the producer, was doing Howard's movie Private Parts. So he used to sit in the radio studio and watch me doing my thing. He set it up where I was going to audition for Bugs. It was hairy. I mean, because you've got to meet so many people's perceptions of what that character is. You try to come as close as you can, but there's something that no mortal can do is replicate Mel Blanc's acting choices. You're skating on thin ice when you start, rambling, say it was a long monologue or something. You got to really pay attention all the times to make sure that you're staying in character. And I used to listen to the cartoons, and I kind of got the patter and the rhythms and stuff like that. Like,
ain't I a little stinker?
Well, does he say, "What's up, Doc," like this? What's up, Doc? Yeah! Nope. Never heard of him.
Bugs changed every time they had a new director for a cartoon. So, bearing all that in mind, I took the plunge and I was doing a Bugs Bunny opposite Michael Jordan, except I was never in the room with him. They had a blue screen guy feeding them lines, and he'd say, "Oh, stop it, Bugs." But I wasn't anywhere near. So then there was a rap party at Warner Brothers for Space Jam. Michael Jordan's agent, Ken Ross, sees me. And he goes, "Michael, this is Billy West. He did Bugs." And he reached over like 6 people. And he goes, "Hey, Billy." It was like shaking his hand was like that big.
Michael Jordan, the closest thing to a religious figure that we have.
And I did Elmer Fudd. You can listen to the cartoons, and he's a combination of a child who acts sort of innocently and new to the world, like a Candide type of character. "Shh, be very, very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits." And then he would go, "All right, wabbit, come out with your hands up. I'll blast you."
All right, you pesky wabbit. I've got you now. Ouch.
And that guy who did his voice was named Arthur Q. Bryant, and he was a radio star. And he had these little characters where he would do, the baby talk. They thought he was perfect for Elmer Fudd because he would just look over and go, "Oh, Mr. Bunny Wabbit, would you come here for a moment, please?" And then he'd go, "I get you now."
Why for you bury me, wiener boy? Guess who?
At that point, I was just answering the calls for auditions, and they said they were going to redo Woody Woodpecker. And I thought, great, I'll come down. And I did my thing, and I said, "You guys do know that that's a sped-up voice." So I tried to do it as approximate as I could. "Guess who?" And that was the Mel Blanc Woody Woodpecker. After him, there was Gracie Lands. That was Walter Lanz's wife. She goes,
"I hope you like today's show."
And they sped it up. And if you could hear me sped up, that's what it would sound like Woody Woodpecker that way. I couldn't do the laugh in real time. It had to be edited because I had to take breaks for breathing. And then when they edited it together and sped it up, it was... And I also auditioned for Wally Walrus. "Oh, Dr. Woodpecker. I hate you, Woodpecker."
That should fix that, Woodpecker, you bet. Mm-hmm.
And I got to do a lot of incidental type characters.
Oh, I would like to buy a hot dog, please.
I was plenty busy on that show, and I loved it. I had nothing but energy. I was younger. I was a young guy.
So I'm gonna be a delivery boy? Exactly. All right! I'm a delivery boy!
Hey, it's Phil J. Fry. Greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks.
You know what that voice is? That was just my voice when I was 25. I remember what I sounded like. I was all whiny and nasally and complainy. I was a musician, and I'd be like,
"Oh, man, I broke a string. Now what am I supposed to do?"
That's exactly the way I sounded.
You'd think somebody would turn the light on.
I was always bitching and carping. And I thought, that's the voice I'll do for Fry, because he is that type of person. He's not a masher. He's a gentleman. He's not a very bright gentleman, but nonetheless, they just said he was 25 and he was a pizza delivery boy. And he winds up in the future and he's still a delivery boy. Going from like the year 2000, I think. Yeah, 1999 to the year 3000, and he's still delivering stuff. That was the funny joke there.
Pizza delivery for I.C. Wiener?
Oh, crud. I always thought by this point in my life I'd be the one making the crank calls.
I get called in to audition, and I met them all at this big audition. Everybody was there. I mean, I took one look around and I said, I'm getting out of here. I see Ryan Stiles. I see guys like that. I see Lori Petty from Tank Girl. I saw everybody. And I just kind of went, oh, man, I don't know. Ryan Stiles will probably mop the floor with that audition. And they sat me down and they showed me pictures of the characters. And it was like, you know, this is Professor Hubert Farnsworth. And they said, what do you think he would sound like? And I said, he looks like airplane food, you know, like a diseased piece of chicken stretched around a bone. He's 147 years old, so he probably farts dust.
Good news, everyone. Bad news.
That damn time machine alone set me back 15 years.
If only it had worked, you could go back and not waste your time on it.
This character, they said, what do you think he would sound like? And I said, well, he's got all that cool meat hanging off his face, so his speech. And I kept thinking of two, a vaudeville before there was television, you know, the master of ceremonies. His name was George Jessel, and he was a comic and he was an actor. And he had jokes like, you know the definition of a smart ass? A fellow that can sit on an ice cream cone and tell you what flavor it is. And then there was Lou Jacoby from the Arthur movies where, you know, he leans into Arthur and goes, what's it like to have all that money? You know, so I used the two of them, cold fused them, and got Zoidberg, you know. Your music is bad, and you should feel bad. And I used the Three Stooges again as another reference point, that woo 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 is Curly from the Three Stooges. Stuff from the 1930s. And I'm doing it, you know, and the scuttling, I'd be going. And that was from Curly going.
Yum, yum, yum. Uh-oh.
This is Zapp Brannigan. You know, Starship Captain Extraordinaire, eh? She's a beautiful ship, all right. I'm going to fly her brains out.
Destroy them.
That's got a nice feel to it.
He was like Captain Kirk. If William Shatner ran the Enterprise and not Captain Kirk, and he always was trying to scoop Leela up, and Fry was like the little jealous suitor that could do nothing but like have anxiety because he couldn't confront Zapp Brannigan. It's all that, you know, the bully gets the girl, the bully gets the best piece of cake at lunch in high school, you know. And after all the bullies came in and took all the beautiful pieces of cake, there'd be one piece left in the corner with a thumbprint in it. That's for Billy. That's for Fry. Futurama, everything was bing, 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 as the pages dictated. Having dialogue for 4 pages, 4 characters that I did were arguing. So I was arguing with myself, but I would do it. I mean, I don't know how to do anything else in this world. You know what I mean? So it's the rewards of a misspent youth.
Unhand that burrito.
Hey!
How many times do I have to tell you? No shirt, no shoes, no cat dog.
I loved going in for Cat Dog. It was so much fun. God, I was working with Tom Kenny, who is the funniest thing in pants. Outside of his myriad of vocal ability, he's so funny. It was always such a joy. Even if you had the worst day of your life, you run into him and you just instantly felt good. At least I did. The characters that I wound up doing were, he's sort of an antagonist, and he's some kind of a boss, you know.
And he runs a corporation. And he sounds like Joe Flynn from McHale's Navy.
You know,
McHale.
1, I'm the guy in the taco shell. 2, keep this place clean. My boss sometimes drops in.
Forget the cat food, Scoob. There's a lot better chow in this kitchen. Smells great.
Casey Kasem was always Shaggy. Like, wow, Scoob. But he was an ardent, almost rabid vegan. one day he just kind of snapped and went, "Come on, Scoob, let's get some Scooby snacks, some hot dogs, hamburgers," And he goes, "Why does it always have to be meat? I don't want to talk about eating hot dogs." He was adamant. And so he was unenthused and they had to find somebody else. So they brought me in there, and I was just trying to do my best to sound like the character that he created. Try to stay true to what was done. You add a little something of your own in there. Wallpaper. If you're doing a carbon copy imitation, there's something soulless about it. So you've got to bring something of yourself to it to make it seem real.
Traveling with any baggage?
Yeah, here he comes now.
Oh, man.
Hey, what are you looking at?
He's looking at my peanut.
I feel so violated.
This is the Red M&M, and I've been the voice of the Red M&M, who could believe, for 25 or 26 years. And he's just like a wise-ass version of me.
Well, think of me as sort of a candy-coated Leonardo DiCaprio.
Originally doing the M&Ms was John Lovitz from Saturday Night Live, and John Goodman played Yellow. Some nonsense went down, and they were recasting, and I got to play the Red M&M. And the Yellow M&M, do you remember the show, the prison show Oz? One time when I was married, I came home, and my wife said, come here, sit down. And she's pointing at the TV, and she goes, "Have you seen this show? Watch this guy. He is the real deal. He ain't no actor. He's the real deal." And this character was like neo-Nazi, white supremacist, just pure evil. And I said, "What? I know him." "You do?" And I said, "Yeah, he's the Yellow M&M." And he's one of the best actors, period, ever. J.K. Simmons. And then he does the commercials for, is it State Farm? Seen it? Covered it. The Notre Dame Cathedral Fire. He won an Oscar for the movie Whiplash. And this guy is a phenom. And I've always looked up to him and respected him. He just surprises me in his roles. How did this happen? It's like the David Byrne song. You may find yourself working with an Oscar-winning actor. Oh my God, how do I work this?
Oh, we can spout crazy theories all day, but science suggests a more logical explanation. That being is possessed by a demon.
Disenchantment. Matt Groening's latest show. I got a few parts that I'm doing on there, but one of them was this court magician, sort of doctor / everything. He's kind of like grizzled, and he wears a little, wizard coat and a little hat sometimes.
Oh, come in. Make yourself comfortable on the dissection table.
There was an actor that I used to love named Jonathan Harris, and he was on Lost in Space. He played Dr. Smith, who was the villain. "Oh dear, William, I can't breathe. Please open that window."
We're in the middle of the galaxy, Dr. Smith.
"Oh dear, oh dear." I just loved him, and I actually got to work with him, and I met him, and I was all over him. I wanted to know every single thing about this guy. He told me the best stories of Hollywood that I ever heard in my life, because he was there since the 50s. And he was doing plays, stage plays before that with like English divas. And then he said, "I'll tell you a secret, Billy." He goes, "I was a D's, Dems, and Do's guy from Brooklyn." And he changed his accent to make him seem almost regal or elevated in society, and people gave him more respect. And he said, "So I stuck with it." And he was perfect. So this SORCERIO is kind of my tribute to Jonathan Harris. But he's sort of villainous because he's got this like love-hate relationship with everybody, Sometimes I think he'd rather see them dead. And then, the next minute, "Hello, dear friend. Oh, dear." When I was a little kid, I would start just inventing my own little planet, my own little universe where that would welcome me. And these things would come out of me, and I realized that I had a superpower. I loved comic books. I loved all these things, and all of a sudden, junk would shoot out of me out of nowhere. Full-grown men's voices, women's, kids' voices. All roads were pointing to voice work. I guess the closest to anything I could get that I really like doing is Fry. because there's so much of me in that character. Felt like I was a loser, and no matter how hard I tried, and over the years, and then you become an adult and you cut through all that scar tissue from your youth, I feel that he has an introspect that is sort of like mine, and so I inject that. You know, how he's making a decision on a moral dilemma.
On the other hand, if I do this,
I'd see the script and I could just watch the movie and I could just hear how it would be said in my head. So there's a nod to my past, way past, when I was 25 once. Thanks, Vanity Fair. This has been the timeline of my career, and I hope it inspired people. I hope it made you laugh. I hope it made you happy in times of darkness, because I was always looking for stuff like that.
And there's a final word. Mwah! Goodbye.